Okay, so in your assignment, it asked you to get basically through exercises 2-3 through 2-4, and then I'm starting with 2-5 today. And then as I just had you read in chapter 14, we're going to put it on a sheet, and then we're going to get some PDFs printed for today. So our main goal is to kind of get this small little office building printed and kind of go through that process and talk a little bit about it. So I'm jumping just a tiny bit ahead of like having you go to chapter 14, because if you look at the end of this chapter, if you were to look ahead, it just has you print it without a title sheet, just the building on a sheet of paper. And I really want you to have as much experience with trying to go through that process of putting that on a title sheet and making sure it's printed to a scale, and some of what I think are important aspects to getting a quality print or PDF out there. So that's the game plan for today. So let's go ahead and get started in Revit. So just make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. Okay, so when you went through the exercises, there's a couple of things that I want you to make sure that you have on your drawing so that you're consistent with mine. And part of the reason that it's important for you to be consistent with mine, not that there aren't a lot of different ways to draft and to draw, but I need to know that you know how to manipulate the software to get it to look this way. So making sure that you have the 110-foot overall dimension, so that is accurate, that your grid line 2 is equidistant between 1 and 3, that the overall north-south dimension is that 68 feet, and that the inside dimension of the office is 22. So when you look at that dimension, it's to the inside face of this drywall and the inside face of the drywall at the on the north side of the building. And the reason that's important is because if you don't have the dimension to the inside face, your square footages are going to be off. And then rotate your door tags so that I know you know how to manipulate those and get those in. I'm going to move this one up a little bit because it's kind of in the wall. And you can use the nudge key. Remember to move things just a little bit at a time. You can also grab the double arrow there to drag it up if you want. They had you go through the process of putting in a door, deleting a door, seeing how that works as well. The other thing that you should do right now is move the exterior wall tags so that they are close to the building. So if you don't have it on a sheet yet, you won't, those tags won't have numbers in them yet. They'll just be blank. So you would see just without any numbers or letters in the tags. They may be very far away on your drawing, so you may not see them. You need to, again, move those close to the building so that when we print this, it's on a sheet and visible. So questions on that? Is everybody at that point? Or what? Yeah, so it'll be a blank until so the question was how the numbers in the elevation tags here. So they stay blank until you place the elevations on a sheet. Once the elevations are on a sheet, it will update automatically for you. Yep, so mine are already on a sheet, and so that's why mine have updated. I'll go through that so yours will also update, and we'll go back and just make sure the numbers are consistent. Any other questions about getting this accurately drawn here? Yeah. And the other thing that might be a little different on mine, so if the scale of your tags looks a little bit different, what may be the difference is down here under the drawing scale. So if you go to your graphic display bar down at the bottom, you can adjust the scale of the plan that you're viewing. And right now it's set for me to 1 inch or 1/16 of an inch is equal to a foot. So if you go to and click on that scale, it should adjust so you see it similar to what I have up here. So what happens when you adjust that scale, I'm just gonna show you what happens when you do 1/4 inch. It gets smaller because of how it gets scaled up for you when you go to print it. So if anybody's ever been or has been an AutoCAD user, you always have to make sure, or in any of the programs, that the text is going to print to the scale that you want it to. So in this case, when it's a 1/4 inch, scale of the text is going to be much smaller. As you get bigger, or smaller in scale, it's going to get bigger in size. So if I were to go to over here from a 1/4 inch to, let's say, 1 to 40, look how big it'll get, right? So we need to know approximately what scale drawing we're going to be at, and not that we can't just keep clicking and going through and setting scales, but if you're going to really refine your drawing and get your tags where you want them to be, you want to make sure that you're in the ballpark of the right scale. So in this case, again, I'm going to go to 1/16 for the text and for the printing of it. It fits pretty well on a 8.5 by 11 sheet. All right, so exercise 2.5 is annotations and room tags, as well as talking a little bit about schedules. So I'm starting on 233, and you want to, first we're gonna add some text at the bottom. So if you go to the annotate tab and over to the text panel over here, and then you're gonna hit the text button. It should look a lot like a lot of word processing programs that you've used in the past, right? Where you have the ability to justify your text, left or right justify. We can, over here under the properties, we can set the scale that we want. So for this one, if we started here or set at a 1/4 inch Arial, it might be something else on your machines. So it could be 830, 330 seconds. You want to make sure you're set to a 1/4 inch. And then down underneath your building, you're going to click and type office building option A. Oops. You can do, in the text, I think they have office building uppercase and option A lowercase. Either way is fine. And you can see it's pretty big, right? So if we want to adjust it, we have just to change the properties up here, if we set it to an 1/8 inch aerial, we can select and then change it to 1/8 inch and it will automatically scale for you. Again, we can either use the double arrow to move it, or we can use the arrow keys and nudge it up and down with regard to placing that text. And you have total control to manipulate that again on the scale of the text and then the scale of the drawing that you're at. And so if we were doing other, again, placement with the text, then we might center justify if we want the text placement to be at the top of the box versus the center of the box. Again, all that's pretty much like word programs that, that you've used before. Right now, when I place that text, I use the A that doesn't have the arrow, which the arrow is a leader. So if I wanted to place text that had a leader to it, so if I were doing a note, then I would use the leader and point to something and then add the text. And we're gonna get lots of practice doing that and manipulating those leaders. So not to worry, plenty of that in your future. All right, so any questions on just putting in plain old text in the drawing? I'm trying to sit up a little bit because I like can't quite get here. Ooh, now I'm really tall. Okay. I can see you all just a little bit. Not that I can't see your mouse, but at least I can see your eyes. So, and please, if you have questions as I go, make sure you ask. All right, so on placing room tags, the way that Revit will identify spaces is first you have to identify the room and the perimeter of the room and the volume of the room, and then you tag the room. The tag doesn't happen without having the room placement in the computer first. So it's recognizing both the perimeter of the room and then the volume of the room. So if you were doing mechanicals for the project, then it would be able to calculate the airflow based on volume or how much fresh air you would need, a lot of other calculations. We use areas all the time for making sure that we're hitting target square footages that might be required from the client, etc. So in order to place a room tag, you're going to go to the architecture tab, and you're going to go down to the room area panel over here, and then you're going to select the room button up at the top. So architecture tab, room and area panel, and then the room placement. And then you're going to, you shouldn't have that pop up, but you're going to click in each of those spaces and you'll see the arrow, or I'm sorry, the X kind of identifies that perimeter. So when I place that, you'll see the blue pop up. You want to align those tags. And not to worry, I'm going to do, this one doesn't have a tag. I'm going to skip that one for a moment. I'm going to come back to it in a minute. And I'm going to keep going all the way across. And my numbers are a little bit different because I've already placed room tags already. And when you do, it just keeps going in the number sequence, right? So if I had 7 of them already placed, it's going to start with number 8. And so I just have to renumber those. All right, so this one actually already had a room placement, but I didn't have the room, the name convention or the tag text on when I placed it. So if you don't have that selected, it'll place a room, but it won't put the text associated with it. And it doesn't mean you can't, again, do that. It's just, you want to be careful about not doing duplicates, because if you were figuring out, let's say for this building, you're the contractor for the project and you're trying to price out the carpet, for example, for this, you don't want to have duplicate areas for that room, right? You want to have just the area one time. And in the software, you can keep placing rooms and it'll keep adding to areas without having that tag there, and it would throw off numbers that you might have associated with the project. So you want to be a little bit careful about doing that. So if I go to the annotate tab, I can tag by category, and then I can select the category that I want. I can also, if I go to that same annotate tab and tag all, I can select room tags, and it would, in the way, and see where it now tagged that room that was there. So it was a previous tag that I just didn't show in this case. But if I didn't have one, it would pop up as room, and it would have the square footages associated with it. So whether you tagged them on placement, it's similar to the doors where you could put the doors in and you could either tag them all as they went in, or you could tag them all afterwards, or you could click on them and tag them individually, right? So lots of different ways in which you put that information in a drawing. So now once you have them all tagged, most likely it's just going to say room as a generic. You need to go back in and change the text name so that the first 4 on the left say office. So if you're following along on 236, it's changing those to office, this to lobby, and then the 2 on the right are going to be men's toilet room and women's toilet room. Yeah. Oh, good question. All right, so the question was, why isn't it showing the square feet? So if you go up to, let me just type this here. Over in the properties over here, you can tag with just a regular room tag, which is what yours are. You can tag with area, or you can tag with volume. So if you wanted to change it, just highlight it and then select tag with area. And your square footages should be the same as what I have up here. That's something I'm going to be looking for when I do the grading, because that would show me that you have the correct walls, you've got the correct dimensions in those spaces, etc. All right, so I double clicked on the room. Has anybody had this happen where you went into either the door tag or the tag itself? What that means is that I'm actually in the tag itself. Like there's a group of information called a family. And in that family, I can set kind of how, like this box, for example, I can set information related to that. So here I've got, tells me that it's aligned to center, the vertical alignment is in the middle, and I could adjust that tag and it would update everything in my drawing. So remind me who in here has some experience with AutoCAD. Anybody? Okay, this is like a block in AutoCAD. So when you do a block and you adjust your block, it updates all of them that are like that, right? Depending on the type of block that you use. It works very much like that, where we just identify them as families, but it's a group of information that we put kind of data associated with it, and it will update every one of those. So if I made a change to the family, it would change all of them if I were to go and make that change and keep it in the drawing. So it wants to know if I want to save it. In this case, no, I didn't do anything. All right, I'm going to keep changing this. So men's toilet room. I'm going to abbreviate that. And then we're going to talk about moving the text because it clearly doesn't fit well within that space. Okay, so when we have text that doesn't fit within a space, we want to pull it so that it's kind of out of the way of other clashes of text. So remember, our main job with doing documents is to get information out there in the clearest way possible. So in this case, I want to move that name over to the side. I need to add a leader for that first. So I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to check leader. And then I'm going to grab that and I'm going to move it. Off to the side. Now see how it has a line associated with it. That line has 2 grip points, so I could pull that so that its leader is, you know, any way I want it to within that space. Really what I'm most concerned that you do, not so much that this leader looks exactly like mine, but that you're able to pull the text out of that space and get it so that it is clearly shown without going over top of other information. I'm going to do the same thing for the men's toilet room. I'm going to highlight it, go up here on the options bar. I'm going to check leader, and then I'm going to pull it down outside of that space. So it's still pointing to it. I know that that's the text associated with it, and it's off to the side. And then I'm going to renumber mine because they're wrong. Oops. Okay, so how do you know sometimes if you have duplicate rooms within a space? Sometimes you can, you'll find out if you go to your schedule and you click and you'll see a lot of extra spaces. So if I were to go over under my project browser here and go to a room schedule, you'll see where I have some extra spaces that are there. That's because I went through this exercise outside of class and then I re-put in spaces. So it's telling me, wait a minute, there's a lot of extra spaces in the project. So that's one way to indicate that you have extra spaces. Well, then how do you get rid of them, right? So because again, if I'm using square footages and other information, my plan actually looks pretty good. Like it doesn't look like I have duplicate spaces, right? It looks like, okay, I've got 7 rooms and I'm good to go. One way you can determine whether you have that accurate, and I'll show you, let me get this one typed in, is to, if I go and do a window from right to left, it's a crossing window, and it's going to highlight everything I select. And I'm going to go over here to the filter. So down in the lower right, it looks like a funnel. That is a filter, and it tells me how many items I have. So I have what I selected. I have 1 grid, 1 wall, and 1 room. So there's no issues with having duplicate rooms there. So I can cancel. I'm going to go up to the top here, and I'm going to do the same thing for this space. And I have 5 items, and so that's fine. And I can kind of problem solve a little bit by taking that grip until I find out where I have extra rooms that might be selected or that have been placed. And I'm doing it kind of the slow way. But again, you can kind of look up there. It'll tell you if you have 2 placed there. That's one. The other is If I go back to that schedule and I say, okay, I know I have duplicates, I can delete a row and it would delete it in the room, right? So it goes, the data goes both ways. If I delete it from one side, it gets deleted in the other and vice versa. So it can be convenient. So if I'm here, and I'm just gonna delete the bottom 7 and we're gonna see what happens on the room. So it's telling me I'm deleting, I don't actually know what's gonna happen. We'll just see. I think I'm actually deleting the opposite ones. And you know how I know? Is because these are typed out as room and not as the RM like I had before. So when I go back into this plan, it's gonna look like I've deleted everything. So now I have 7 spaces, which is what I should have, right? I'm gonna switch to the plan, and now I only have 1 showing. So I've got the right number of room volume, but I just don't have my tags on. So if I go back to the annotate and I go tag all and I check that room tags again, and that worked well. Room tags. Huh. Well, let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna go the other way, and I have Office 4 I know is good. Here, I'm gonna go to my 3D view for a second. So I'm just trying to see if I have that volume in there anywhere, and it doesn't look like I do. So for the sake of not having you sit here and watching everything, I'll go the opposite. So I know that the top ones, I'm gonna go back. So I have the original 7. Okay, getting closer. So going back and forth between those two are going to be important to knowing, or really within anything. If I delete a view, it deletes it in the opposite. Similar to the door, when you deleted the door, it would have deleted it in the schedule. It works the same for room names and room numbers. All right, so questions on this part here. Okay, so I want to talk about a little bit more about families for a second. So the information that is a component or a family is like a block, or it's a group of information, and you have the ability to manipulate the information associated with it. So if we're looking at the doors, again, you can, this is just a family of information, right? So we have, in this case, a single flush door, and it has information. We could load another door type, so I'm gonna load a family. And if I go to the doors, I have a lot of different doors that I could load, right? It's just a group of information that gets loaded into your project. So here, if I pick double glass door and load that in, I'm going to say okay, and it gives a whole bunch of sizes. I could load them all, or I'm just going to hold the shift key and load in 3 of them just for now. And up at the top under the door, I have now 2 different types of doors to pick from, right? I have the original one that was part of the template, and then I have the one that I just loaded into my project with the 3 sizes that I selected. And I could load in a whole bunch of them. I don't want to, because it's just gonna increase the file size, and there's no need to. I'm just gonna have to sort more if I load more at this point. But as you're working through your project, you might have to keep loading in different ones, right? So if I wanted to have, instead of having a single flush door on the outside of this building, I might want a double glass door. I would need to load that into the project. And now, if I clicked on that door, I could change it to a double glass door and it will automatically update, right? So I can adjust those at any point and select a family and change it to that family type, as long as it's a door, right? So if I have a door, I can change it to any door. I can't change it to a window. I'd have to place a window in order for that to update. So the title blocks are just like that. They're just a group of information in a family, and then we're gonna adjust the information for that family and load it in. It comes preloaded with a few of them. So if I go down to the project here, and I'm just gonna click on A8 wall sections, this is the title block that's preloaded into this template file. It's just a standard Autodesk title block that comes, it's a 30 by 42 title block, and if we were printing this project out, we might put it on that sheet if we were doing like full-size sheets, obviously 30 by 40. We're not going to do that. We're going to print it on 8.5 by 11, but we have to load that 8.5 by 11 into our project. So if you go to the, I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to just close the wall sections. So I want to load that in. So I'm going to go to the insert, and I'm going to load a family. And right now I'm under doors. I don't want to be under doors. You probably weren't, because you haven't gone here yet, I'm guessing. And down towards the bottom, and they're identified alphabetically. So we want to go to title blocks and double click that folder, and you'll see there's a variety of title blocks there. We want to select the, we're going to do the 11 by 17 horizontal, and then we're going to do some manipulation of that family. So none of this is in your textbook. Again, because in this case, I want to have you kind of go through this step a couple of times. I mean, not that loading title blocks isn't in there. I mean, that's what chapter 14 is. Starts you out talking about it. But we're going to load in that 11 by 17 horizontal into our project. So once you have it selected, you're going to open. And if I were to go to any one of the drawings now, I'm going to use again elevation sheet. I'm going to go to you. Why don't you go to your plan sheet? Doesn't matter. It's the same process. And you're going to select this. And now, just like, remember like the doors where I selected the door and I changed the door type, I'm selecting the title block. And if I've loaded that 11 by 17 horizontal in here, it now, I can just pick it and adjust that family. So obviously the information isn't set on the sheet. Let me go through that one more time. So this is just a family of information. I'm going to highlight it, And if I've loaded the other in there, I want to select the 11 by 17 horizontal. And it looks like this is just the standard Autodesk title block. And we're gonna do some adjusting of that title block. So this is the baseline 11 by 17. Now we're going to actually go into that family and make some adjustments. So remember I double clicked on the room tag, and then I went into that family room tag. Now I'm gonna double click on this title block, and I'm gonna go into the actual title block. So if you have that up, you wanna double click on it, and it's gonna be up here. You'll see you're in, this is your file name up here, and right now it's a little dashed line. We want to, because this is a family, and it changes the way the Revit is. The very first thing we want to do is rename it, because we don't want to mess up the base 11 by 17 title block. So the very first thing you're going to do is File, Save As, and you'll see you don't even have Project as an option because you're in a family. So you're going to save Family, and you'll see the difference in the extension down here at the bottom. If you are saving a project, it's an RVT file. If you're doing a family, it's an RFA file. So there's families and then there's projects. And we're in a family right now. So we're gonna rename this one 8, I'm just gonna do 8 by 11. And it's a horizontal format. And you can either, you could put your name. So I'm gonna put 8.5 by 11 horizontal, and then I'm gonna put Charlotte, so I know this is the one I've made. Oh. And I'm gonna save that. So now if I look up at the top, see at the top up here, it's 8.5 or 8 by 11 horizontal Charlotte. That's the drawing that I'm in. So right now, I want to get rid of some of this extra information. I don't really need it. I'm going to delete. I'm just going to window around this and then hit delete, and I'm going to hit delete there. So all I have is just a little thing in the corner, right? So that's all we're doing right now. If I put a, if I measure between a point, right now, if I go from here to here, remember this was 11 by 17, so I actually have to shift to that size to be an 8.5 by 11. So I'm gonna move that information. So from here, I'm gonna grab that grip and move it over here and see where it says that it's 17 inches. I wanna move that ultimately so it's 11. And I have to put the inch mark on it. Oops, I did the opposite way. I'm gonna do it the other way. I wanna move this one rather than the other one. And I'll come around and kind of help you after I get through adjusting this and getting it on the sheet, so I make sure that you're all set there. So, and again, I'm gonna grab the grip, move it over, and I want that to be 11 inches. And then I can either just grab this and get it, oops, grab it and move it. And then I can adjust that here so that I have 1/4 of an inch. That's what it is originally. Now, if I look at the dimension at the top, I've got an 11 inches there. I'm gonna do the same thing for, I want it to be 8.5 by 11, right? So if I click on this one, I'm gonna grab and drag that grip down to what I want it to be measuring from. And in this case, I want that to be 8.5. And I can either, again, do the math for that. I'm just going to move it close again. And then I'm going to adjust that to 1/4 of an inch. So if I dimension from here to here, I've got 11, and from here to here, I have 8.5. So that's what you need to do, is to get your title sheet to be 8.5 by 11. All right, so I'm gonna pause and come around and make sure you're at this point, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so once you have your title block that is to the dimensions that you want, I'm gonna delete the dimensions. Otherwise, when I go to bring that title block into my drawing, it'll have the dimensions on it. Because remember, this is like I'm modifying the family. So if it were a door and I added a door handle on it, for example, then I brought that family and it would have the door handle on it because I modified that block or that family. So I'm going to delete that, otherwise it's going to come in. I just wanted it there so you can make sure that you have the right dimensions for your project. So I have right now, if I look at the top, I have 8.5 by 11 horizontal Charlotte sheet. Now, I have not loaded this into my project. I had a file, I renamed it, and I had an 11 by 17. I don't have this one loaded into my project. So that's the next thing that I need to do, is load this title block into my project. Remember, it's just like I could put it in title sheets, I could put it anywhere and load it. It's just a group of information that I want to put into it. Right now, if I go to my, I'm going to flip, you don't have to do this, but if I go to this A4 elevation, my level, I'm not having a good example here. A5 elevation, see, this is that old title block, right? This is the original 11 by 17. If I click on it, there's the 11 by 17 that I double clicked on, and then I modified it, but I haven't loaded it in yet, right? So I need to load that into my project right now. So you can either, I would probably for now, otherwise you're gonna end up with a lot of files open, I would load it into your project and close. The other thing you want to do is make sure you know where this file resides. So if I'm now ready to save it, I'm going to do this one more time before I load it in. I'm going to go File, Save As, Family, and right now it's under title blocks on this computer, which is fine if I'm always on that computer, but if you're going to work at home and you want to have that title block, you need to make sure you bring that file with you. So I'm going to put it on the desktop right now. So I'm going to put 8.5 by 11 horizontal Charlotte right where I know where it is. So when I'm in Blackboard at home and I need that file, I upload it before I leave today. So I'm just making sure I know where that file is. It's going to, again, wherever you put it is fine. You just need to know where it is. I'm going to put it on the desktop and I'm going to save. Oops, Charlotte. Okay, so it's on the desktop and it is ready to load in. I'm going to load into project and close. There's two ways I could just load it into the project and keep the file open. I'm going to load it into the project and close the file at the same time. So you shouldn't have that pop up. Okay, so now in this project right here, if I go to any one of the sheets that you're on and I click on that and I go over to my properties, now I have my 30 by 42 original one. That was what the template came with. I have the 11 by 17 horizontal, and now I have the 8.5 by 11 horizontal Charlotte, and I wanna select that one. It's just like I went to my level 1 and selected door and picked a different door. The title blocks are exactly the same. It's just you need to select it and get the right one. So now if I'm on, I can go in to every one of those sheets. I could start going down, and on first floor, I want to highlight that title block. I want to make sure it is the 8.5 by 11 Charlotte. I'm going to do that for level 2. You don't have quite the same. So level 2, if I had a level 2, highlight it, change the title block to the 8 by 11 Charlotte, and I'm going to go down and do the first few drawings. I don't have to do them all because I'm only going to print 2 sheets, but it's good practice. So I'm going to go to the roof plan, same thing. I'm just highlighting that family, going over to the properties and changing that to the correct title block. Elevations for A4, I would highlight it, change it to 8.5 by 11 horizontal Charlotte. Now, we need to go back in and edit the information in there. So I'm going to go to my first floor plan, and yours will probably not be fitting on the sheet properly. I'm just going to move it off to the side. I'm just going to delete it for right now. So if I have a blank title sheet, I want to drag and drop the plan onto it. So I'm going to just clear off both of these for the moment. So my first floor plan, I want to drag and drop it on there, or my level 1, it's the same thing. So if I go over here, I'm going to highlight level 1, and I'm going to just press, hold, and click over here. So you want to, in this case, want to get it close, and then you can kind of move it around. Now, your title, the level 1 that's here, may not be in the right spot. So if it's not in the right spot, you can grab and move it. So it's here, and I can move it underneath the floor plan. I don't really want that long end of it. So what Revit does is however big that floor plan window is, it just adjusts the tag to be exactly that same length. I want to be able to manipulate that. And in order to do that, I have to say, okay, right now it's based on this window size. So if I click it, if I can click near that, see how this dark box kind of comes up? It also brings up a grip for that. That's just saying that grip is as long as that window is. In this case, I'm going to drag it smaller, and I can adjust that any way I want. But I won't get the grip unless I click the window once. So I click the window for this, and I move it up, and it moved that with it because I was highlighted both of them. Now I'm going to move that back down and move them without that one being highlighted. So what you want then is to get all of that information to fall within a sheet. And I'm going to go and I want to change that to say project number 1. We're going to adjust the date to Wednesday. So it's going to be 9/16/20. Drawn by me in this case. It's going to be checked by me in this case. It would be drawn by you, checked by me when you do it. I want the sheet to be A1 if it's not. And the scale is going to be that 1/16 of an inch equals a foot. So you might have to adjust your dimensions a little bit. You might have to compress it a little bit to get all that information on that sheet. Right now, I don't have elevations. I deleted them on A4. So for right now, you'll see those are the dashes that I was talking about. It means that I don't have elevations placed on that sheet. Yours might pop up with it now. It just kind of depends on, like I said, I intentionally deleted them so they weren't there. The minute I go ahead and put those elevations on the sheet that's called A4, that automatically will fill that information out. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go to scroll down to my project browser. I'm going to go to A4 elevations. And if I needed to, I would drag and drop the north elevation. Then I'm pressing and holding, and I'm going to grab the south elevation. And I'm going to click, hold, and then click one more time. The levels that should be shown on the elevation would be your level 1 and then the roof that you put in your previous exercise. You want those tags to be the right length. And I'm going to go ahead. These are elevations. Project number 1, again, the date should be updated automatically because I changed it on the previous one. I'm going to adjust that back so it's all consistent. So Charlotte. That would be, I'll put your name there. So the 2 sheets that you're printing for this assignment are going to be the first or the level 1 plan and then the elevations. There's 2 sheets that you're going to submit as a PDF to me in Blackboard. So this is your first one. And now see where when I click on the floor plan, I have the A4s now in there because I grabbed and I put them on a sheet. So it automatically filled that out for me. I'll change this to your name too, so I'm consistent. Okay, so this one came in with a lot of sheets already pre-set up. Like I said, we're only going to print A1 and A4 for this assignment. So when we go to print, we're going to go File, Print, and then we want to select Adobe PDF. So we're going to print a PDF, and then you're going to submit those PDFs in Blackboard. That's the game plan. So you want to, we can do 2 sheets in one file, and I'll show you that first. It's kind of nice because you're not actually paying to have it printed. So you can do it, you know, as many times as you need to get the printing correct. I'm going to browse until I get to where I'm going to place this. So on the desktop, keep track of what your naming is. So I'm going to say this is small office. I'm going to put today's date, 9/09/14. Oops, 14. 14, and then 20. In case I'm working on it outside, or I could do P's assignment 1, or right now I just want to save the PDF. I can always rename it before I submit it. So I'm going to hit save. So I know going to the desktop, that's my file name. Now, when I go to print, I can print the current window, which would be this sheet right here, or I can select the sheets that I want to print. I'm going to do it via sheet, so I can do more than one. So it's going to, in this case, I want to combine multiple files into or multiple sheets into a single file. I'm going to select those sheets here, and I'm going to scroll down towards the bottom, and I want to make sure sheet A1 is selected and sheet A4 is selected. Those are the two sheets I'm printing a PDF of right now. So I'm going to hit OK. I want to go to my setup, and I want to make sure my paper size is set to letter. I want it to be in landscape format. It should be zoom 100% because I want this to be to the scale. So if I were to put a scale down, it measures at 1/16 is equal to a foot. So it needs to be 100%. If I fit it to page, depending on your printer, and I go to set a scale down on that sheet, it may or may not be to any given scale. So I want to make sure I have 100%, and I want to make sure the placement for the paper is centered. And when I get to some other options later on in Revit, we'll take a look at some of those options. But for right now, the criteria that you need is the Adobe PDF, you want the center placement, you want zoom to 100%, landscape, and you're gonna hit OK. Now, once I've got that, I'm gonna hit OK. Nice. All right, let's try. That's not a printer issue, that's a lab issue. Let's try it a different way. Let's do Microsoft Print to PDF. I don't know if you're doing this at home, you might have to, you want to make sure you're printing to a PDF. It may not, maybe Adobe doesn't work. Let's go, I'm going to go through the same thing with the Microsoft Print PDF. Combine into multiple files. Again, the sheets are selected for A1 and A4. I'm going to make sure my setup is correct with letter, landscape, 100% center, hit OK, and then I'm going to hit OK. Looks like this is going to work this time. So my file name is going to be Peas assignment 1. And that's my PDF. And I'm going to put it on the desktop for now, just so I know where it is, and save. I'm going to go and make sure that that's there. Sorry, toggling between the two windows here. So there's the Peas assignment 1. I'm going to double click that, and it's opening on the other. So this is the PDF. So here's Peas assignment 1 PDF. There's the first sheet, and there's the second sheet. So then I would take that file and I would upload it to Blackboard under the assignment, which I'll show you in a minute. So I want you to practice printing the PDF so that you have hopefully the sheet. If you're ready to go, awesome. Otherwise, I want to make sure everybody is kind of up at that same point where you have, and I need to close out of, I have a lot of stuff open right now. I'm going to just close some of those. I don't need all of those open with regard to it. So I'm going to take a break, and then I'll come around and answer questions on getting those sheets printed. Even if your plan isn't done, like let's say you need to go back in and you need to add more information. All you have right now is a wall or whatever it is. I mean, hopefully you're further than that, but I want to make sure that you're clear on getting that PDF, getting the title sheet on and ready to go. All right. So I'm going to walk through, I've had a couple of questions and I want to make sure everybody's clear because of course mine conveniently popped up completely 100% accurate and yours may not. So, all right. So when you're doing the elevations, and I'm on A4, first of all, the little plus sign over here tells you what drawings are on the sheet. So on A4, I've got elevation north and elevation south. And if I click on that, obviously I have north and south. Now, yours may have come in so that the levels are way off the sheet. So I want to adjust those so those fit on the sheet. So to do that, I need to go to my north elevation. So on the north elevation, I want to set my, make sure that your detail level is set to fine. So you can see the brick. And you should see the windows that are on there. And the levels, if I click on them, they're sort of like a grid. These are datum elements. They're on all sides of the project. So it's like a three-dimensional level. And then when I pull the grip, you'll see it adjusts the level line. So you can pull those all the way back and forth here or here. So you want to get them as close as you can to the elevation. So just grab the grip and pull it so that they're close to it. Now, because these are three-dimensional elements, it also shifts them on the south elevation at the same time. So if I click on my south elevation, it adjusted them there as well. So you want to kind of hit the sweet spot of where they show appropriately on both elevations. We can adjust them not three-dimensionally. I don't want you to do that quite yet. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. If I go to any one of the elevations, see this little 3D button up here? So if I highlight a level right here, it brings up the little 3D text right there. If I click on that, I can make that 2D, which means I can move it in one elevation or on this elevation, and it doesn't move it on all the other sheets. So here's the thing, when you really get into utilizing the Revit, you graphically want to show it one way on a sheet, but you don't want it to impact the entire model. So oftentimes I will shift those levels from 3D to 2D. It's just highlighting them and then adjusting it. Now I did say I don't want to have those other levels on. So if you had top of footing and bottom of footing showing, you can take those, highlight them, and if you do a right click, you could hide elements in the view. So I just have those two. So I'll go to a different elevation and kind of show that again. So here, first thing I'll have you do, this time we won't have to keep going back and forth between them, is click the 3D. I could move them, a little bit closer, but again, it moves them on the other views if I'm in 3D. So if I'm on a short side and I move it, it might be inside the elevations on another view because they're longer, right? So if I hit that 2D, it's just in this view and I can grab the grips, I can pull them tighter, and then I'm gonna highlight that, a right click, and then I'm gonna hide in view, in this case, just the elements. If I select category, all of my levels will go away. So just elements, and you'll see that I can adjust my grid lines for A and B too. I'm just grabbing the grips and I can pull those tighter. So on any one of the elevations, I'm grabbing them and adjusting them to fit on that sheet. You're just kind of manipulating the information, getting it so that it fits nice and tidy on that sheet. So when you ultimately get it done, you should have just the roof and just the level 1 and then the grids, and it should all at a 16th inch scale fit nicely. Did anybody have it where when they went to do their elevations, you couldn't see the brick pattern or the windows? Okay, that may be the case for some of you. I want to show you why that happened. So if I go to my level 1 plan and I click on this A4 at the top, the little triangle piece, it pops up a blue line. So on any one of those, it's going to pop up a blue line if I click on that triangle. That blue line tells me where that elevation is taken. So right now, this blue line is an elevation of that side. I'll click the north one because it's a little easier to see. If I were to move that blue line in here and click on that elevation, it looks like a section. Because that line that I moved is inside of the building. For an elevation, I want that blue line to be outside of the building. So that may be one reason that your elevations did not end up working appropriately, where you're seeing information that you didn't expect. So it's just a matter of clicking the triangle and then moving the line so that it is, and it really doesn't matter where. It could be 500 feet away from it on this side, but it still needs to be not inside the building. Otherwise you get a section view. All right, so let's say you get all of your stuff ready, you've got that PDF printed and you're ready to submit your assignment. I'm gonna go through that. So in Blackboard, you'll see, I will post the lecture obviously from today after class is over with. I'm going to click on the small office building. You'll see submit a PDF of the first floor plan and elevations, sheet A1 and sheet A4. Please make sure the files have your last name first in the file name. So for example, P's project 1 and then the PDF. It's going to be due Wednesday at 9 a.m. So I won't obviously see all of you in class on Wednesday, but in Blackboard, I would expect to see your drawing submitted there. So when you go to submit it, you're clicking on the text here, tells you when it's due, and then I'm gonna browse my computer until I find that P's assignment 1, or I should call it project 1. For now, I'll just say okay, open, and it submits it there. Now remember, I had both of my files in one PDF. If you're at home and you can't figure out how to get the two drawings together, or you forgot for some reason, just submit them individually. I prefer to have them together, but don't get all upset if you can't figure that step out. Should just be, again, a box that you pick in Revit, and then you're gonna hit submit once you have, you've browsed and you find your file. Questions on submitting the project in Blackboard and that part of it? Okay, so that's your main goal between now and Wednesday, is to get those 2 PDFs, and then on Wednesday in class, and for all of you, you'll see a posting, we're gonna start really what is a multi-week project. So in the textbook, in chapter 3, we're gonna start working on a larger office building, and we'll be doing that for a number of weeks. Now, the last thing that you should all do before you leave today is make sure you have your files. It's going to be a real bummer if you get home and you don't have the files that you worked on in class. So I would go to your content area, and you want to go to however you've got yours structured to your AR129, and then upload the files that you worked on today. So grab your title block, grab your office building. I would put, again, the date on it. Make sure you get the RVT file, not the one that has the numbers after it. That's your backup files, and get those loaded so you can work on it if you need to outside of class. Any other questions? All right.